Okay, so I'm Sara Fancy. A lot of you know me already, and I'm in Ranchita, California. I'm originally from England, but I've spent most of my life in the US, um, specifically California. And today I'm doing a presentation on my work called The Cosmic Algorithm. I did write a book last year about it. It's kind of like a manual. I'll say a little bit more about that later. So first of all, what is the cosmic algorithm? So it's basically a culmination of everything I've learned and experienced probably in the last 28 years, I think. Yeah. So starting with polarity therapy, cranial sacral unwinding, family constellations, which I still do. I do that with horses and tabletop, and I teach it as well as facilitating and horses. So it also involves horses, which I do the constellations with, like I said. And what else? Oh, yeah, frequencies and scalar. So all of that kind of got organized into this program that I call the cosmic algorithm. And hold on, let me look at my notes. Okay, yeah. So about me, like I've been on a healing journey, I think forever and ever and ever, like probably like a lot of you have. And there were consistent patterns in my behavior that never changed. And then when I applied the principles in the cosmic algorithm, they changed, like for good. And I was like, this is this is something, because it was at a structural level. Whereas the healing that I've done and I teach kind of will uh, pinpoint something like maybe inherited trauma or birth trauma, but then things might improve, but then there still might be underlying behavioral patterns that are consistent, right? So the way that I started developing the cosmic algorithm was really studying my signal. All right. So when I say signal, what I mean is like what you emit. Okay. And it's based on your attention, your nervous system, your orientation, your behavior, and your relational patterns. Okay. And I realized that my signal was leaking and I was merging. So my signal was merging. So what I mean when I say that is that I was externalized. I was outside of myself pretty much all the time. I say 95% of the time, maybe. And managing everything outside of myself. Okay. And so when I say merging, like going out of myself to go somewhere else, whether it's with a person, with someone's problem, with animals, with my environment, and I know a lot of people promote that, we're all one and that we can experience everything. Okay, so what I learned is, yeah, you can still do that, but you don't have to leave yourself. Okay, so that was huge for me. And when I stopped doing that, everything got so much better for me. Like I was less exhausted because you know how exhausting that is when you're managing everything outside of you. Okay, where you feel responsible for everything outside of yourself. And I'm not saying it's about not caring or anything like that. It's not that at all. It's just learning how to regulate yourself, your attention, know where you are, where you're at, where you're invested, and bring it into an internal organized orientation. Okay. And that's what I learned how to do. And then everything started to change for me. Okay. So I wrote a 4-part series on Substack. So I have a Substack account, and it's called From Chasing Life to Standing with It. And it's basically that, like when you're chasing life, when you feel like you're constantly trying to grab life, or, there's a sense of urgency around it, to like when you just stand with life, where all of that drops, right? You don't have to manage it anymore, right? I'm not saying it's not about taking action or anything like that, okay? I'm really talking about orientation. And anyway, so the Substack article starts with me as a bodybuilder. I was a bodybuilder when I was in my 30s for about 10 years, from my mid-20s to my mid-30s, and I was competitive and everything. That was the whole reason I moved to California. I was pursuing a goal. The goal was to become a professional. And then, I had a rupture, basically, where I realized it's an illusion. And that sent me on another path. So that was part 2 of the series, where I learned how to manifest, right? So I got really into metaphysics. It was completely new to me. I'd never heard that you create your own reality. I'd never heard that. I was fascinated. I was fascinated with healing, all of it, right? Things that I, had no experience with. And I just consumed, right? I got books from the psychic bookstore. If anyone remembers Venice back then, there was a bookstore on Main Street called Psychic Bookstore. I used to work next door to that place in Body Alive. It was a bodybuilding store that I managed for a bit. Anyway, so I started learning how to manifest through these meditations. But what I found was, yeah, I got what I wanted, but then a whole other stuff, a whole load of other things happened, which was really detrimental. Let's say that. Like, it's kind of like when you have, a wish with a genie, right? And the genie gives you 3 wishes. There's always a consequence, an unforeseen consequence of what you're asking for, right? And so even though I was getting what I wanted, right, but it wasn't in the way that I imagined, it made me start questioning, like, why? Like, why does this happen? What am I doing that is making that happen? Like, I didn't write that in my meditation about what I wanted, right? So that goes into part 3, where I manifested the love of my life, okay? And he really was. But that didn't go as planned. And and there's other things in my life. Anyway, so I write all about that. That's the chasing, wanting something, wanting to be a professional bodybuilder, wanting to have lots of money, wanting to live wherever I like, where, completely out of my, uh, you know, completely out of my league. Let's say that, right? Um, 2, like starting to understand why things happen in the way they do. Why do things happen? Has a lot to do with signal. Has almost everything to do with signal. Like what your signal is broadcasting. Okay. It's basically what you're going to get. And obviously in there is hidden elements, because it's not all conscious. Okay? There's a whole unconscious aspect of that. And what I found was that I could figure out my signal based on patterns. So just that example that I just gave you around manifesting, Well, first of all, when you're manifesting, right, you're coming from a lack. You're basically saying, I don't have this and I want it, right? So that's coded in your signal, okay? So that influences what happens. And then, your nervous system, okay? That influences your signal as well. And then another thing that I realized about myself was that I was in, was it? Yeah, parasympathetic. Um, sorry, I lost my sympathetic and parasympathetic. Which one is the one when you go, just, I lost that. I'm losing my train of thought here. Go on, tell me, Tony. Take your mute off.
Oh, the pressure. I'm sure that I don't know now. It's the parasympathetic, I believe.
That's what I thought. Right. So yeah, parasympathetic when you're on overdrive, right? It's fight or flight. So I realized that I was in low grade parasympathetic pretty much all my life. Okay. Tracking, tracking, being hyper vigilant, stabilizing outside of myself. Okay. Stabilizing others. Like, do you know how exhausting that is? It's incredibly exhausting. So, and then with that comes like intensities, right? So, if you do choose to read my Substack, you'll see how intense it was for me. Like, I've had a pretty intense life. Um, you had to. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm more intense than you. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I have a reference point because now it's not. It's nowhere near as intense as it has been. And, some could say it's even kind of boring, but I actually like that. I would choose more of a boring life, even though I don't feel it's boring, than over sort of like really high intense moments and really low intense moments. And you might think, because I live out here, right? And it's in the back country. Like, what could be intense about living out here? Well, there's lots of things. Just I'll give you a quick example. My dog died, and I wanted to bury her here, and I loved that. I loved my dog. She was called Foxy, and I buried her. And then about a month later, she got dug up by coyotes, and she was just everywhere, like torn up, and she smelled really bad, right? And I had to deal with that by myself. And see her little face, and her legs over there, and her tails there, and the smell was just brutal. And like that to me, that was very intense. That was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So even what I'm saying is like even out here, I did have intense experiences. So the bottom line is now it's really kind of calmed down. Like I've calmed down, my experiences have calmed down, my nervous system's calmed down, I'm regulated, I know how to regulate myself. Okay. So this was all through learning about cosmic algorithm and how things works, how things work. So that was my original inquiry. Like, how does it work? Like, how does life work? Outside of religion, outside of um, what I've been told, okay, especially in the New Age thing. Um, and the entryway into cosmic algorithm starts with sovereignty, okay? So I'm going to talk about sovereignty. What do I mean when I say that? What I mean is you owning your own authority, right? Like not outsourcing your authority to anyone else or anything. Like let's say like political ideologies, spiritual ideologies, identity-based ideologies. So what I mean when I say that, like when someone's basically running their signal through an identity, okay, which could be the black sheep, let's just give an example, or a starseed, or a healer, right? And I'm not saying that's bad or anything like that. I'm just saying that when that becomes the drive, that when that becomes the element that is running you, right, as opposed to you consciously relating to it, okay, then you basically you're on a borrowed signal, and then your own signal is weak, right? So a lot of times I have people come see me, and I'd say 50% of the time it's like I wanna I wanna be my authentic self. Like I wanna know myself. I wanna, you know, live my life authentically, right? Because part of them realizes that they're not. Okay. And that's to do with their signal. That's to do with them running off someone else's signal. And that could be their parents, that could be their ancestry, their culture, it could be um an ideology, like I just said, like an identification of like I'm Republican or I'm Democrat, you know, or I only relate with certain types of people, right? Because it becomes really narrow. And that's what I'm saying. When it's running you, okay, so like, so the question to ask is who's driving the car? Who's driving my car? Who do I give the keys to? Okay. It also is to do with addictions and obsessions. Okay, so addictions, you know, all you all know about the types of addictions. You know, there's porn, there's alcohol, there's drugs, there's power, there's money, right? Anything that takes you over, that starts running you, where your attention is funneled into that. So I'll give you a little example. When I was living in Topanga, it was years ago, I used to drink red organic wine, and there was a store on the way home that sold it. And then it was like, 15 minutes to my place. And I'd drive by, I'd be coming up the hill and like, should I get a bottle of wine? Should I not get a bottle of wine? Should I get a bottle of wine? And part of me is like, no, you don't need it. You don't need to drink every night, right? Even though it was like 2 glasses of wine, it was still consistent. Okay. And then the other part of me is like, well, once I go past the store, that's it. I'm not leaving the house and I'm not going to go back. So it was like that all the way up the hill. It's just taking me over, right? Like, shall I not? Shall I not? If I do, this will happen. If I don't, that'll happen. See what I mean? It consumed me. And by the way, I don't drink anymore. So I don't have that either. And I have done a personal journey, even before I got into the cosmic algorithm, of systematically going through every addiction. And because then I knew I didn't want anything running me. I knew that back then, that I didn't want anything, and marijuana, right? Like smoking weed. I smoked weed for years and years and years and years and years, like a lot, like daily, up until 2009. And that's when I quit. And I started when I was like 13, like really young. And again, that was, I just thought like, yeah, weed's cool, like it makes me feel really related, but I wasn't relating to, or I wasn't participating, let's say that, because I was high and nobody knew, right? It was my little secret or whatever. And it really hindered my progression, let's say that. Because when I stopped, like things changed a lot for me. I started my own business. I went more out into the world and I had more confidence and things like that. And you know, I realized too with marijuana, it's such a strong plant. It's a weed. They call it a weed for a reason because it grows really fast and really strong. It's very powerful. And I realized that it had power over me. I did a constellation around it, and that was really eye-opening for me because I thought I was just using it. Then I realized, like, no, it has power over me. So I had definitely given my keys to my car to marijuana. So I'm just talking about that. So as far as sovereignty, coming back to sovereignty. So, like I said, it's the entryway. It's like if you're not sovereign, everything else in the cosmic algorithm is probably not going to hold. All right, because it's about orientation, it's about signal, it's about coherence. It's basically, like I said, like coming to a place where literally life starts to organize around you or me instead of the other way, right? So that goes back to the chasing life and standing with it. Let's go. Hold on, just looking at my notes. Oh yeah, so another way to kind of um, figure out like where you're at, where's your attention at, where are you, is when you wake up. So when you wake up in the morning, are you thinking about someone else? Are you thinking about someone else's problem? Are you thinking about the problems in the world? Are you has something got your attention? So even when you wake up, it's got you. Okay. So I used to do that. I used to wake up thinking about people because I also work with people, right? And I don't want to wake I don't want to wake up thinking about someone else. I want my attention for me. Okay. I don't want to be hijacked or captured by someone else's problems. Even, though I am professional in that I help people, but I do sessions and that's it. I walk away from the session, we're done. All right. But I had a tendency to uh, wake up with other people and even in my personal life, right? And there was a time here where I used to have people stay and I would do mentorships. I still do mentorships, but I would do mentorships with people on site. And then I would dream and I would basically dream for them. And I would get information and that would, decide what was going to happen the next day and stuff like that. And I sort of felt like that it was part of my job, that was something that went with the work. And then I realized like I don't want to be dreaming for other people. Like they can have their own dreams, right? I don't need to do that. And also what happens is there's an element of me taking away some of their agency. Okay. Like me doing it for them. Okay. I don't need to do that. I realized that too. I was way overextending myself, way overreaching and and stabilizing, like I said. And it's way too much. Like it's too much. So not doing all of that changed everything for me. It changed literally it changed the way that I perceive time. Like time literally slowed down for me. And it was noticeable. Like whereas before it'd always be like, oh, there's never enough hours in the day. There's so much to do here. How am I going to get this done? I got to do that. It was constantly like that. And now it's completely different. Like I don't have that experience. And so again, that's a reference point. It's almost like you don't really know another way until you experience another way, and then you're like, oh, that is different. Because I've seen that also. I trialed this, right? So I had um people that I worked with as a trial, because I also extend this to horses, right? So in the way that I use it with horses, it's called signal presence with horses. because horses read your signal. Okay, they know where you're oriented. They're wired like that, and they can give you feedback in real time. Okay, and so I trialed that out, and it was really profound. And I also did it myself. And where was I going with that? Oh yeah, I trialed. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So I worked with some people that were really well experienced in meditation. Okay. And what I noticed was the tendency to blend, right? To merge with the environment, to merge with the horses. But even that is like leaving yourself. But you leave yourself to do that. And for horses, that's, you know, they can't locate you, okay, because you're everywhere. So they don't really respond to you. And then for someone, because I used to do that, I used to meditate like that. Okay. And I'm not saying meditation is bad or wrong or anything like that. I'm talking about orientation, talking about signal. And horses are much more responsive when you're solidified, when you're stable and when you're coherent. Because when you're stable, you're coherent. And they respond to that. Okay. And so with with people who are used to, sorry about that. Sorry, my phone ringing. I thought I had it on Do Not Disturb. Okay. Um, there's no, so when you're absorbed, right? So when you're absorbed in your environment, okay, it kind of feels nice, right? Like I remember doing meditations like that, feeling one with your where you're at, in your house or your land, and then extending it to the town, and then extending it to the state, and then extending it to the country, and then extending it to the planet till you're like one with all of that, right? I would never do that now. But at the time I thought, oh, this feels kind of cool, right? But that's like being completely absorbed. And and then where are you? Like where'd you go? Right? And there's this other aspect of like when you leave yourself, you have like an open house. Now anything can come in. Okay. It's like when you leave your home and you go on vacation or you spend more time outside of your house. What happens, right? Well, the mice might come in, the rats might come in, the squatters might be in there. You know, you're leaving it open for anything else to come in. But when you are internally organized, nothing's coming in unless you want it to. All right. And so consequently, life is, I'd say, like for me, okay, so for me, it just got way better, way better. And it's subtle. Like the Substack thing I wrote, the part 4 was okay, when I realized what was happening, I realized why things happened to me and then how things are now. So I gave the example of, I got a new wall for my yurt because my yurt was getting battered. Like yurts only last like 12 years or something. Like the outer wall is basically canvas, doesn't last that long, or 10 years, I think it is. I've had mine 12 years, and it was I could still kind of repair it, and I was doing repairs, but it was flapping around. The winds come up, and the windows would be flapping open and things like that. It's really fierce here, like the weather's fierce. And so I started looking for like these little things to repair it, and I couldn't find them. And I had to call the company, the yurt company, and they had them, but they were expensive. And I was like, that's kind of a lot. And then I just said, how much is a yurt wall? And they said, well, actually, we've got a sale going on right now, and we've got $500 off if you order a wall. I'm like, okay. So I just ordered it, and I just thought, I'm going to put in my credit card. You know, I just did it, and the whole thing was seamless. I mean, putting a yurt wall up is not not easy, right? Especially out here where it's limited of who you're going to hire. Like, there's nobody out here. Very few people, let's say that. But anyway, the whole point was I got it done in 2 weeks. Like, they delivered really fast. I got two guys to help me. It was really reasonable. They had scaffolding. They had all the tools. Um, I got it done in within 2 weeks, and I got a brand. It's like having a brand new yurt. So whereas before, like I used to make decisions because it was catastrophic, like the whole wall maybe have like torn up and fallen down, and my yurt's completely exposed, right? That's probably when I would have done it. But this time around, it was kind of calm, and it was just like I was able to see opportunities without the noise, right? So that was a big difference too. Okay. Because it's all there anyway. Everything's there anyway, but it's just like your perception and what you're focused on and what you can see. And then another example I wrote about was these hammocks, right? So I got a hammock and it was the best thing ever. And I just never really thought about it. And because I always thought, oh, there's nowhere to put a hammock. But I was working out in this little area that I have that's in shade. And I have two vertical um, beams. And I was just sitting there, I was like, oh, I could put a hammock between those beams. And then I looked online and I found one really cheap for like $26 or something. It's all cotton. It's really nice colors. And I got it and it's like the best thing ever. I was just like, this is amazing just to like be in a hammock when it's boiling hot in a shaded area. I don't have AC or anything like that. I'm off grid. But it just like made a huge improvement to my life. And whereas before, I wouldn't probably have even like thought about that or. So I'm not going to say more examples, but there are more examples. But basically, it's sort of like a gradual improvement of my life where it's not through, um, I have to make a decision or I have to do something now, that kind of place of when you make a change. I guess that's what I'm saying. So that was different. That's noticeably different for me. Um, Yeah, and like I said, try I think I did 7 people with the horses, and it was really interesting for me. I learned a lot by just trying that out and seeing how my horses respond or don't respond. Okay, and yeah, so this year I decided I'm gonna teach it because it's replicable, right? And I was able to write the book. I think I showed it to you earlier, which is basically like a manual. Okay, so the book, this is kind of, it's a bit, the feedback I got was one of the people that read it said, I wanted to know more about your personal experiences. Like it's more like a manual. And I said, yeah, it is a manual, really. It's mechanical, right? Because that's kind of how I see it. I see it as a mechanism and a system. And so then that really prompted me to write the Substack articles, the 4-part series that I mentioned, which is deeply personal. And it's so personal in a way that I put it behind a paywall. It's like $8 or something like that, right? If you want to read it. And I made my brother pay for it and my sister because they wanted to read it. And they were saying, well, send it to me. I'm like, no, you gotta subscribe. And they did. And my brother left a comment. What did he say? It's a rip roaring, ripping yarn or something like that. Because these are things I never told them. I didn't tell things that happened to me, but I say it because it's related to what I've been talking about. And it illustrates how I used to experience life to how I experience life now. Yeah. So I think that's everything I kind of want to say that I have in my notes. And I'm just going to open up if there's any questions. So, anyone have any questions? No. Yeah, go on, Tony. Take your mute off.
I was just letting everybody go first. Of course, I have a question. Um, yeah, so I'm just a little curious, Sarah. When you're talking about sovereignty and identity-based activities, whether it's obsession or whether it's any sort of thing that you're emotionally invested in with regard to identity, if I understand correctly. Um, but as with ego, surely that's something that there must be some sort of balance because we must have some sort of our own identity, of course. So there must
Yeah,
be some sort of balancing act to you don't want to cancel yourself, right?
no, no. Okay, is that the question?
Yeah, that's the question is so the balance in between how do you come to that equilibrium? How do you come to that balance in between where so sorting out everything. So if you look at obvious ones for obsessions or whatever it is, it's very easy to see, but quite often life's not so black and white, you can say. So there must be some sorting out of yeah the voices in your head or the emotions that you feel about different things. And so there must be a crossover point, or I think in the States they say a tipping point where you're moving away from identity-based activities that you was talking about, obsession, because a lot of them are part of life as anyway, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that's a great question. Um, so when I talk about I didn't even use the word ego. Did you hear? I never
So
used that word,
for me, it's
right?
the same as identity,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah, so it's I'm not bashing ego. I'm not bashing. I'm not an ego basher. I'm not going to bash your ego at all. Like if anything, I say ego is a positive thing, right? Um, what I mean is, I'll give you an example. Right. So I used to do astrology. Like when I found out I'm an Aquarius and I have 6 planets in Aquarius and I'm called an Aquastel. All right. So that's what they call us. Who was born 2 weeks in that period. Okay. And I joined a Facebook group of the Aquastels, and it's all like, well, what's your moon in? If you've got 6 planets in Aquarius, like, what's your moon in? And there was even people with their moon in Aquarius. Oh my God, you got 7 planets in Aquarius, right? And for a while, I used to kind of present myself as an Aquastel for a short period, right? And then with astrology, it would like limit me in like, well, they're a water sign or they're an earth sign. Um, Even in my work, if I had was opening up to an intern or someone or was hiring someone, I'd want to know their sign so I could determine how we were going to relate, right? If we were going to get along and things like that, right? And even in the romantic world, right? Like I'm not even gonna like pay attention to a Capricorn. Things like that, right? I'm not even going to give a Capricorn a chance because I've already determined, like, I'm an air sign, and air signs are not very compatible with earth signs, right? And it was simplistic, like going off sun signs. But my whole point is, I was identifying through that, right? Through astrology, through my astrological identity. And I don't do that now at all. Like, I don't even do astrology. I pay very little attention to it because it limits me. It's not who I am. That's the whole thing. It's not who I am, right? It's just a label. Okay. I'm not saying astrology doesn't have value, but the point I'm trying to make, Tony, is that when it dictates behavior, when it's running me, when I've given my keys over to that identity, right? as opposed to me like relating consciously to the identity. I can, that's the difference. Do you get it?
Yes, I understand. I did understand what you meant. I was just, I still am curious about the, yeah, because it's not a grey area, but if sovereignty, as you said yourself, is the main foundation. Without it, nothing else works. So if that's a major part of sovereignty, then I wanted to understand it correctly. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, you're welcome. And I'm not saying nothing else works. It's just like not gonna stick as well, right?
Hmm.
Everything downstream from that. Like, okay, so people who I don't know if I don't want to offend anyone who's here, but I'm just saying if you have a guru, it's probably not for you. Cosmic album probably not for you, right? Because your signal is ran through the guru, running through you're running the guru signal, basically. All right, because there's you know, like for instance, when I said earlier about we're all one, we've heard that, right? I hear that a lot. We're all one. I don't want to be a one. I don't want to be all one. I want to be me. I want to have a boundary. I want to have boundaries. Okay. Having boundaries is healthy. Another thing, you know, unconditional love. Like I talk about that in the book. I don't agree with unconditional love. I think it's been weaponized and I think it's used in a sense to take away your um, advocation, like advocating for yourself or for someone. Like, hey, I don't think that behavior is appropriate. Okay, so I gave this example, kind of a funny example, but I was married for a little bit, you know, in New York, and I had a husband, and we go out and eat, and then you know, a woman would leave the restaurant, he'd be like looking at her breasts, right, the whole time from when she left the counter to the exit door. And I'm like, dude, like, what are you doing? Well, I'm not, what am I doing? I said, you're just staring at a woman's breasts. Like, it's so obvious. Now, if we had an unconditional relationship, he could say, hey, you know, it's unconditional love, right? Meaning I can do whatever I want. And then, you know, if you say anything about it, then hey, it's unconditional. I'm just giving you a very tame example. All right. That's a very tame one because it's essentially about boundaries and and conditions because it can go really awry. Like I don't know. I, anyway, you might not agree with that one. I get pushback on that one. You know, people push back on that one. They have a hard time with that one because
Really?
it sounds so nice. Yeah. Oh, it's unconditional. You know, we're just gonna love each other no matter what.
Because you
Blech.
have to apply it to yourself first, surely. If you was applying the
Well,
unconditional love to yourself,
yeah.
then you'd be acting within your own boundaries, no?
Okay, let's think about that. So you're saying if you have unconditional love towards yourself?
Hmm.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
one thing to try and apply it to the world around you, but if you haven't got it for yourself, it's a bit like love, trust, respect, and everything else. If it doesn't, it's not real. It doesn't work unless you're applying it to yourself. If everyone was applying it to themselves, you'd have a totally different opinion of it because it
I see
depends
what
how you,
you're saying.
yeah, it depends how you
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
interpret it, I guess. But I
Yeah.
don't think it's out there. Sorry, so nobody else is asking questions, and I did have a couple more questions.
Yeah, go
Um,
ahead.
so I'd like you to talk a little bit about access, the axis. You didn't
Oh
mention.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
But
I
before you
didn't
do that,
really sorry. Sorry,
be-
Tony.
you're right.
Say it
No worries.
again. Say it
So
again.
so you mentioned working with frequencies and scalar. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that's a spooky, a rife
Yeah,
frequency.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, then I was a little bit well. Then I was very curious how did that tie into the cosmic algorithm? In what context did you learn from that experience and how did that translate into the cosmic
Got it.
algorithm?
Okay, that's a great question. Okay, so yeah, I was a representative trainer for Spooky, which is Rife frequencies. So if anyone doesn't know about that, Royal Raymond Rife was around 100 years ago, actually, in this area in San Diego. And
Oh,
he discovered that you can eliminate bacteria with frequency the same way that sound would shatter a glass, right? If it's at the same frequency. And he had a trial where he worked with 16 people with a cancer and they got better. And then after that, his everything got destroyed, his generators got destroyed and everything like that. That's why you don't really hear about it. But so it's not new technology, it's been around forever. But the whole point of that and how that really came into the cosmic algorithm for me and my understanding is that everything can be reduced to a number. Okay. So basically everything is frequency, like everything. And frequencies can be reduced to a number or numbers. Okay. So that to me, that's an algorithm. That feels like an algorithm to me, or algorithmic. Okay. And then as far as the scalar, because Spooky also sold, they make scalar machines, and I have one, and I love it, right? And I had to do webinars and training webinars on it, so I had to learn about scalar fields and things like that, right? And I didn't quite understand it, and I remember researching it and just swimming in all this, and I still didn't quite get it, but now I get it. Um, So I'd say that was 4 years ago, I think. So now I have much better understanding of it, and that we can create our own scalar fields. And in the second part of the cosmic algorithm, right? Because I'm just explaining to you the basics of the of what I went through in the beginning. And once you understand about sovereignty, signal, orientation, and coherence, once you understand that and you can practice that, then you can move on, which I did, to basically generating a scalar field within your body. Okay. And that's when you're generating coherence. Okay. And that's when things really start to organize around you and things like that.
oh wow, that's cool. Do you have a spooky program for that?
No. There are, to be honest, I don't even use the generators anymore. Rarely, Um, yeah. I use them for my horses sometimes. Like I do a cleanse for them and stuff like that, remote, right? So for anyone who doesn't know, that's done remotely. You get a piece of DNA, you put it in the generator's remote box, and then it's quantum entanglement, right? So a little piece of you relates to the bigger part of you, and then you can receive the frequency that is through the database in the computer. There's 60,000 frequencies, and there's frequencies for everything. I mean, there's DMT in there, there's cocaine, there's coffee, there's emotions, there's essential oils. I mean, there's got everything in there. And if you can't find it in there, you can find it online. That's what I realized. Like, that's when I was like, everything's a number. Like, I can look up uh, well, I can look up anything that isn't in there, and I can find the numbers for it, and I can program that in. Okay. So it what that did is that it gave me the understanding of frequencies in that sense. But now I don't depend on it. Let's say that. I used it a lot, and I'm not saying don't use it. I think it's great, right? I'm just saying my own personal evolution and everything. I think there's this aspect of me too. It's like, because I talk about obsession, like obsessively healing, obsessively jumping on the next fad, obsessively, like when is it enough? When have you done enough healing? Right. So that's part of why I'm also doing this, is because I'd rather teach people how to organize yourself so that things can be easier, let's say that, right? Or you're ahead of the game, let's say that. Or at least so that you can understand why things happen in your life, right? I'd rather do that than just do really intense healing sessions, which, my work is kind of like that. It can be very intense. And I'm not saying it's wrong or bad or not great. It's incredible, but it's like, I think I've gotten to the point now where I just want to empower people to understand how things work. I mean, it's pretty basic, right? Again, it's not religious. It's not a belief system. If you follow what I'm telling you, right, you don't become dependent on me. I don't want you dependent on me. I don't want. I want you to be completely independent. That's what I mean. I want you to be independent, to have greater sovereignty and greater coherence in your life. Yeah.
Thank you.
And oh, you're welcome. Yeah. Did that answer?
Yes, yeah, that one did. So
Thanks. And yeah, thank you for the questions there. Anyone else have any questions? No. Okay. Oh yeah, there's a chat here. Let me see in the chat. Uh, oh, that's Myra. So she says she's leaving. I'm gonna go a few more minutes. It's got 5 minutes. I was gonna go to 11. So so I'll talk about what I'm offering. So in July, I'm offering a 5-week cosmic algorithm course, and it's basically set up like the book, and then I go through each principle, and then I give like exercises that you can do and things like that. And that starts July 11th, and it's online, and they're 90 minutes. So each class, I think it's on a Saturday morning, I'm pretty sure, from 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to 11:30. And then in October, I have the on-site signal presence with horses, which is what I told you about earlier, where you can experience in real time in a living field with horses, like your signal. Like, they give you immediate feedback. Okay. And that program isn't like me doing any healing or anything like that, or any processing. It's basically taking people, um, sorry, not facilitating. It's like having people go in with the horses by themselves and noticing. That's the whole thing. Like, because the first thing you need to do is like, where are you? Right? Where's your attention? Like I talked about that earlier. Like once you start tracking where I am, where are you? And then you can come back to yourself. And Tony mentioned that. I didn't even go into that, but it's a axis in your body. That would be where you want to be. It's a vertical line in your body. And that's where, so basically like centered, right? Like a lot of things say that. When I was doing polarity therapy, it was always like center yourself. And in cranial sacral, it's like, your fulcrum, which is your center, be in your fulcrum. But then, when it's done, there was, okay, you're out of it now, but the cosmic algorithm is about like being there all the time, like home base. That's home base, and learning to be there all the time, right? That's when everything starts changing.
and does that have any relevance or association with the sacral unwinding that you were speaking about before?
Yeah, what's the cranial sacral connection? Well, that the cranial sacral is more to do with the second part that I was talking about,
Okay, so
with the standing wave, the scalar, the
all
still
right.
point. Because in
Mhm.
cranial there's still points,
Right.
and
I was
that's
just
more.
curious because of the direction of the fluid, and I wondered if it was the same
Oh
direction.
yeah, you're talking about axis. Yeah, yeah. No, no. Like when you're facilitating, a session like that, like you don't want to be all merged in the person stuff. Like when someone's touching you, you can feel everything about them, and like their intention is kind of icky, right? Like
Mhm.
it creates neutrality so that
Good.
you're not bleeding out into someone else's space, right?
Mhm. I
When you're
understand.
center, yeah, you're in your own space. Like what you were talking about earlier about conditional love to yourself. Like I see that if everyone's in their own axis, then there's no imposition, there's no manipulation. You can tell if you're in your axis, you can tell when you're being manipulated.
Mhm.
You can feel it, right? But when you're not even in your body, when you it's much harder,
Mhm.
right? When you're fragmented, let's say that. So I talk about different ways that your signal can be. When you're fragmented, like I was fragmented, I was leaking, and I was merging, right? And now I'm not doing that anymore.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah. Thank you. Um, yeah. So the signal presence with horses is on the October 17th to 18th.
And is
So what
that
I'm gonna
sorry to
yeah,
interrupt,
go ahead.
sorry, is
Yeah.
that after the call? So after the online,
Yeah.
then the people who's been and done the cosmic algorithm, it's a chance to practice type deal in
Yeah,
your
exactly. Yeah,
right,
but it's
okay.
on site, and I know a lot of people might not be able to make it here and stuff like that. Um, but also the people that come into that, I'm not opening up to anyone. They have to know the principles of the cosmic algorithm. They have to understand it. They have to
Right.
have a sense of that. Otherwise, it's just you're not really gonna make any
Mhm.
sense. Um, Oh yeah. So what I'm going to do, I'll send out the recording and I'll put the links to the Cosmic Algorithm remote classes in July, and then the Signal one, and then the Substack articles if anyone's interested in that, and then the Cosmic Algorithm book, which is on Amazon and it's on Kindle as well. But don't buy it on my website; it's more expensive on my website.
I
Are
got
you
it.
telling me what?
I got it in the UK. It was super quick. Come like in 2 days, it was here.
Yeah, that's weird because it takes longer here. I don't know why. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you to Motorola Moto. And I don't know who Motorola Moto is. Okay, everybody. Yeah, it's 11:02. So I want to keep on time. But thank you so much for attending. And you can also email me questions or anything. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Thanks. And it's
Okay,
great to
thank you
see
for your
you.
time, Sarah. Have a nice day.
Yeah, you too.
See you later.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.